right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. This is an interesting one. This is an inaugural podcast because we have this really new fancy equipment, which allows us to be in person.
Yes.
So we have this equipment. We're in my office, and thanks to Dr. Bart Santos, by the way, for telling us to buy all this wonderful equipment. It works really well. And it allows us to have an in-person podcast, which we've never really been able to do. It's always through Zoom, and we have different microphones. We're in different spaces. So this is really cool. So it had to be Brittany style.
Yep.
I'm very lucky to have Brittany Simon, our hygienist, our hygiene lead, and part of the Bulletproof Hygiene team with me today. And in true Brittany style, she bought this beautiful bottle of Cabernet, very, very expensive bottle of Cabernet. And I had to rush over and get these glasses here because patience.
Because patience. That's why we drink.
Yeah.
Why do you drink?
Well, I don't know.
Because
patients are gone, or because patients are beautiful?
Patients are beautiful. They're wonderful. We love them.
Yeah.
So we drink.
So I have a bottle of scotch here, and we're going to come to you today because we want to talk about leadership development. And also in true Brittany fashion, it was about 3 o'clock today, and she came over to me, excuse me, and she said, hey, what are we going to talk? What's the agenda for today? What are we going to talk about? And I'm like, we're just going to talk about us and like how we've developed along blah, blah, blah. I start talking and I see her typing away. I figure like surfing, like looking at Instagram or something like that. And at 5 o'clock, literally 20 minutes ago, she's like, should I print the agenda? I'm like, agenda, Britt?
What agenda?
What agenda? And sure enough, for those that are actually watching right now, there's like a 1-page, bold and indented, beautiful agenda. It's just a testament to who you are and how when a person like me and a person like you get together, it's amazing. Magic can happen.
It's true. It's true. And you knew that I would bring an agenda.
I did not know that.
Are you surprised?
I am very surprised.
Are you?
I mean, I don't know. I've not been on your podcast. I don't know what level of preparation goes into it.
Oh, it's usually like 10 pages.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
This is okay.
Yeah, Peter and I never have this. So I just wanted to talk about, because I hear, we had a guest today from Maryland coming in, a dentist from Maryland. He's part of our mastermind. And he said to me, he's like, you're so blessed. You're so lucky. You have all these amazing people. Mm-hmm. And you're just really lucky. And we know, because magic is hard work, we know that it wasn't just luck. It was a lot of effort and time and energy that came into our relationship to make it as special as it is right now.
Right.
So wanted to talk to you about like the life cycle of how we came to be.
Yeah. So I think that one of the most important things to kind of reflect on is that a lot of good things for us in our practice came out of some really shitty situations and some really hard things that definitely at the time didn't feel like opportunities and didn't feel good and just felt like we were about to crash and burn. And I know for you were probably really scary moments as a doc owner, and I wouldn't have wanted to be like in your shoes at those times, but I am really thankful that you chose to grow and lead, and kind of like, even though it was a really scary time and a time when you could have like turned and run for the hills if you really wanted to, like you didn't, and you just kind of like stepped up and chose to learn and chose to like grow through it, so kudos to you first and foremost. But I think that one of the major things, or one of the major initiating points of our strong relationship in the way that it is now is like the 2018 exodus of our highest producing hygienist.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a huge transition. There were it wasn't a pretty transition.
No, it was very hectic.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, I'm happy that you thought about that and said that, because it was in moments of sheer terror that I couldn't see a way through it. I was super scared. And when a doctor, when the leader or the owner of the organization gets scared, they usually revert to control and they try to control the situation. This situation was uncontrollable. We had our highest producing hygienist, the one who literally did like 60-70% of more than anybody else,
right,
decided to leave very abruptly. She was the lead. I'm using air quotes for those who can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very scary. And it wasn't really, we had no way through it. We didn't know how it was going to work out. And that's a great point to say that when things are most scary, that's when the magic can happen, if you allow it to.
It creates space for something else. And sometimes I think, in the absence, in a void, like it can be filled with something worse. It can be filled with something better. If there's intention behind it, or it's designed to make things better, then it can really go in the right direction. And I think that, to your point of docs and people who have a lot to lose in a situation like that, like obviously you have a ton to lose, right? Like not just did you lose the highest producing hygienist, but you lost our then leader, in air quotes or not, like the person who was then leading the hygiene department. So then what did that leave? It left the void of leadership in the hygiene department. So you or someone else had to step into that.
Yeah.
And it left the production and collection void. So that's huge. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
And the knee-jerk reaction is to micromanage.
Right.
So what we wanted to talk about today is that it takes you have to shift in your consciousness for the owner of the business. We'll call that the leader, and the team member. So there requires a shift on both ways. So when the shit hits the fan and everybody's freaking out, the leader's going to come down and micromanage because you're scared,
right,
and you're fearful. And when you micromanage, the team member's like, what the hell? This person doesn't trust me.
Right.
So it's a death spiral if it doesn't get fixed.
It really
and
is.
I remember early on, like some iterations of me trying to micromanage you, like with the lip balm. And Brittany and I, for those of you who are familiar with Culture Index is something that we use in our office to kind of understand each other's emotional temperament and our strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things that Brittany and I have both in common is we're both very emotional people. We wear our hearts on our sleeve. We can get our feathers can get easily ruffled. We're not logical. We approach the world and how it feels. So I would come into Brittany's room and be like, hey, the lip balm, get the lip balm. Because I was just so scared and out of control that I thought with the leadership of the practice, going away in the hygiene department, I've got to come in and sweep in and micromanage everybody. Britt feels like I don't trust her. And it's a bad cycle. And we just maneuvered through it because we had the type of relationship where you could actually come to me and say, hey, Dr. C, when you do that to me, it makes me feel like blah, blah, blah. And I could see how that could manifest as a problem. And we worked through that. And from that, I think it was like there might have been a conversation, I can't even remember, but maybe there was a conversation where I actually kind of laid it all out. I don't know. How did you wind up taking the lead of hygiene?
I think that I just started doing some things, and then the hygiene team took a vote, and I was already doing some things. So they were just like, oh yeah, Britt's already doing it. She can just have it.
Okay,
like go roll with that. Do your thing.
Yeah. So that's often how it is. It's never voted, it's appointed. It's like you're chosen as a leader.
Yeah. Right.
So you start stepping up, you say, give me some freedom. I got this. I step back, I give you some space, you fill the space.
Not even that at first. I think at first there was, okay, you feel a loss of control and then you micromanage. And then we had to talk about the lip balm, and you were very receptive. And I think that that's a key point, is like, you were fearful, but still receptive to me saying like, hey, you're really crushing me here. Like, I know, I feel that you don't trust me. I feel insulted. Of course, I'm putting lip balm on the patient. It's a small thing.
It's looking back, it's really embarrassing, by the way, for me to think about lip balm. Like there's so much shit that goes on.
Yeah. Right.
And like I'm picking on lip balm.
Right.
That's like, you fucking kidding me? Like I'm running the whole department.
Well, the way, of course, that it makes anyone feel, or me feel, is like, okay, you put the lip balm on. Like, it's like a doc when they come in and like check my perio chart or something, or like they come check for calculus or something. I'm like, really?
I was just
like,
scared that the experience would go away.
Oh, of course.
It was coming from a place of fear, and the doctors that are out there were just scared.
Yeah.
We don't, we go through 4 years of schooling. We know everything about how to cut a crown prep. We learn shit tons of medical stuff that we'll never use again. Like, if your patient comes in with a gunshot and their hand is like this, like, I'm a freaking dentist. When someone they come in with a gunshot, I'm sending them to the ER, but legit, that's how they talk to us in dental school.
Wow.
So, but they give us no business management, no other way of navigating, teams and development. So it's just scary, and we don't know what we're doing. And that fear translates into, I don't trust, I'm scared.
Right.
And then the team's like, this doctor's crushing me.
Right.
Like, what is he doing or she doing?
Right.
And so I just am really proud of our relationship, because that was the first shift. The first shift was like, okay, you're taking it, you made a decision for yourself, like, shit, I'm here anyway. Let me just step up and start making things better.
Yeah.
I know how to make it better.
Yeah.
You knew it intuitively.
Yeah, I did.
So you gave yourself the permission somehow to say, I'm just going to start doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And I maybe was distracted, or I'm like, this person has, some growth opportunity or something like that. But then it started this inertia of you just getting shit done.
Right.
And then it was undeniable.
Yeah.
What you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at first, honestly, for me, it was a little selfish, because I felt like there was so much missing in our department, and I didn't have room or space to express that, or to start implementing any of my thoughts or ideas. And that was across the board, I think. I think that the leadership that we had before was very stifling, and it was very, one way, and very minimizing of other people's ideas at times. And it was like, the consensus of the hygiene team was very much that at the time. So I definitely felt that way. So when, a person left, And I just saw that there was space for me to make things better for at least myself, and in the ways that I saw could be better, could benefit everyone across the board. I just started doing that. And one of the things was making actual agendas for our hygiene team meetings, and kind of like, what's the old business? What's the new business? Like, what's the protocol for making sure we're following up on this stuff? Because we would have a lot of meetings, prior to me kind of stepping into that leadership role, but I didn't feel that they were very fruitful. Like, it was kind of like, why are we spending 2 hours after work? If we're all going to be here and invest our time, like, we're all willing to do that, but to what avail? If it's to no avail, then it's not worth it for anyone, for us or the practice. So started just being a little more intentional about the running the meetings and scheduling the meetings, and giving people notice too, because people would always come to the meetings with the same complaints, like, oh, there's no food, we're hungry, we didn't know that this meeting was happening until yesterday, and we don't even know why we're here, like, it's just a gossip session, or it's just a this or just a that. Yeah, it didn't have a direction. So that was one thing that, like, I think started really changing, because that was like, what are our current challenges, what are our pain points, kind of thing, and we started addressing those in our meetings, and then it kind of like spiraled and snowballed from there. And from there came the new SOP. From there came more calibration. From there came collaboration with the periodontist. From there came quarterly reviews and socials and all of the things, because those were, those for me personally were missing. And this is a place where all of that is possible. So it was,
what a shame, what a travesty.
Exactly.
So like for me, that's what I want. Like, if you gave me a magic wand, I'd want what you created, but I just don't know how to do it. And I'm so low detail. Like, one thing about like our different personalities, like I love moving ahead. I love winning. I love being with people, but I'm super fast paced and super low detail. So even this agenda that came from this was like a 5-minute brain dump. You're like, what are we going to talk about? And I literally just talked.
Right.
And you're typing away. And then this manifested from this amazing agenda, which we probably won't even follow. But what you
which we're currently not following.
But it's just amazing that the alignment from what I wanted for you guys and what you created are exactly alike. And it's just, what a relief to me as a leader of the organization that I don't have to be the guy that does it. And I don't want to be the guy that does it.
And you shouldn't have to be, and no one can do it all.
Right. And it's also just not, I'd rather you express your own vision for the hygiene department, which you have so beautifully. And we have such a high engagement, loving, amazing hygiene department.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. And if we really think about, a dental practice, I know there's a lot of disparaging comments that are coming out on the Facebook chats and stuff like that, where people are hating on their hygienist because, all this stuff going on, whatever. There's like a big rift in dentistry. And I just want to push it forward that the hygiene department is the life of the practice. It's the lifeblood. And Peter and I always say that. So it runs so incredibly well. We have no shortage of hygienists that want to work here.
Right.
I am not in charge of hiring them, because we all know the last time I hired one, that girl got, arrested and all that stuff. So I am not good at everything. I realize that I shouldn't be in everything. And it's such a beautiful feeling for me to allow people a space so that people like you can step up and fill in. And it's always what I wanted. But how interesting the process was corrupted by my fear and insecurity. So it's like any other relationship. I mean, I want to just draw the parallel, like when you're in a romantic relationship, for example. At first it's like, okay, can I trust this person? What is this person going to do? And then sometimes you can just self-sabotage for, like, I don't know, for your own shit.
Right.
So it's the same thing in a work relationship. Like, I'm nervous about what you can do. I don't give you the space. I'm crushing you, and you get pissed off and you'd leave.
Right.
Or like, we can talk this through and you can step through it. And it's just really cool.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on what both of us want out of the relationship. But one thing that I want to ask you is, if you had, clearly you had a vision for the hygiene department, but if you thought, and from your view and everyone's view, like, it was going really well before our leader left, what did you ever imagine our hygiene department looking like it does now and running like it does now? Like, in your vision, is this what you saw, or were you not sure what you wanted this to look like until you saw it happening?
So I am a visual person. I have really good visionary capability. So I can imagine the chocolate cake. I can imagine what it looks like and how it feels and what it's going to be like. But building the chocolate cake, how much eggs and sugar, I can't do that. Right. I don't have the capability to do that. It drives me batty. So the funny thing, and when I started realizing this is well beyond me, is when I go to you periodically and be like, hey, we should do this. You're like, well, what the hell? We've been doing that for like 3 years. And I started feeling like Dr. Evil, like, throw me a bone. I've been frozen for 30 years. And it would be like, hey, Britt, we should do this. Well, we have like a 20-page SOP on that. You want to read it? I'm like, no, because I don't have the capability and the brain power and the patience to do that. But yes, the feeling of what our hygienists have,
Mhm.
the camaraderie, the support network, the mutual lifting up and fellowship
Right.
that the hygiene department has. It's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to build it.
Right.
But if I could describe the feeling, you could have met me 10 years ago. Like even in my vision, I would have said like it's a group of mutually supportive people that are trying to grow each other and trying to bring out the very best that they can.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted that feeling. I just didn't know how much eggs and sugar it would take to make it.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of like pieces that might be missing from a lot of practices. And one of the pieces is like being able to see what's possible, like, and maybe seeing a practice running well and optimally and
Yeah.
like thinking to themselves like, oh, I don't think that's possible. I don't
Yeah.
think that's in the realm of reality, you know,
Yeah,
kind of
I
thing.
knew it was possible.
Yeah.
I just knew it like in my heart because I'm like, okay, you go to the Apple store and people are engaged. You go to Starbucks and people are engaged. You go to these restaurants and people are engaged and the team really cares about it. We're changing lives. I mean, no, I'm not trying to, throw shade on Starbucks or Apple store, but the Starbucks Frappuccino is not really a good thing for you per se.
Right.
No offense. It's just
Yeah.
high sugar. It's not going to enrich your life.
Right.
But like what we're doing is life changing. You're helping people become more healthy. We're taking people out of pain. We're doing transformational work. So why is it that they can create such high levels of engagement, but dentistry can't? So dentistry, I just saw dentistry was broken. So my whole mantra in 2008, when I started writing the visions down, my vision for the practice is we want to revolutionize the practice of dentistry. I said, I'll revolutionize it in this box, but I always knew that it'll spill over and we'll be doing this type of stuff and we'll be on the airwaves and trying to revolutionize it for other people.
Right.
I just knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to get there.
Yeah. I could see all those wheels turning in your head at the same time.
Yeah, it was.
I can imagine that.
Yeah. So yes, you created exactly what I thought could be done. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're so linked together. We work together every day. You know who I am and how we want to be in. We share the same ideas for what dentistry can be. So it was, you just built it all. You
Right.
built it underneath that framework, which is so cool.
Right.
It's really possibly one of the most proud things that I've accomplished. And money comes and goes. Unfortunately, we're all doing really well. But when I look around, when I walk around these halls, it just fills me with such joy. Like Dr. Mike was here today, the guy visiting from Maryland. He's like, you are so blessed. You are so blessed. And I'm like, I know I am, but it was a very intentional thing. And the magic that we created is really hard work. And I saw Janet Taylor walking out with a patient. She's like kind of touching her on the shoulder and they're giggling and they're looking at stuff. I'm like, I just love that shit. I love human connection. I love this little box that we created that's a social experiment for how to just all get along really well and just focus on doing good for people.
What an experiment.
Such an experience, a beautiful experiment.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I'm most proud of. And that, on the days that I'm not even working, I want to be here. And I want to be here, drinking scotch and wine and helping other people right now too.
Exactly.
So we're combining all of our
and you
interests.
are on your days, air quotes, off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the agenda, Britt, since we have this.
So I think here is a good point. So people running their own lives at home and then coming to work and like asking permission to use the bathroom kind of thing.
Yes, I love that
like
idea.
I don't know. I think, and I've seen in so many different workplaces and not so much here, a little more when I was new, in the early years, like 14, 15, 16, when things were really ramping up and no one really knew what we were doing because this is a whole experiment. It is, it's a multi-specialty giant experiment. Yeah. Experiment box is a great term for it. But I think that it's so interesting how just in the workplace in general, humans, as much as I think that a lot of people beg to differ with the statement, we're all capable. We go home and we run our daily lives, like some a lot better and maybe a lot more functional and in a healthier way than others, and depending on how you measure success, like maybe some more successfully than others. But we all go home, we have kids, we pay bills, we keep our things in order, we make our daily lives work for us, right? And then we come to work and switch our brains off and let someone else tell us like, okay, what we should say and do and how we should say it. And when we can use the bathroom and when I can take a lunch and when I can look at my phone to call my kid at work if they're sick or kid at school and see if they're sick or whatever. And I just think that's so interesting how it's almost like there's this cultural thing where like we're trained to come to work, switch our brains off and let someone else do the thinking for us. And from a boss standpoint and from an employee standpoint, everyone is okay with this. Whatever this process or this,
we all drank that Kool-Aid.
We all drank the Kool-Aid. I'm not sure how and when and why and how that all, the evolution of all of that and how far back that goes. I think that a lot of it is just control based, like humans like to have control. So, oh, this is the control person. This is the people under the control person, you know, controlling these other people and managing these other people and like whatever.
It's not working though.
It's not.
It's not working. So it worked really well, I believe, in the Industrial Revolution when
Mhm.
I was the boss and I paid you to put like a nut on a screw and
Right.
screw it and then move it to the next thing.
Right.
It was time on task. You were a factory worker. And if we really think about it, like education is based on like the factory worker as well. It's time task. You got a bell, you got to do this quiz. I mean, why are we memorizing like the Crimean War when we have Google like in our pocket? Like,
Right.
why are we doing memorization?
Right.
We all have calculators right at our fingertips. So
Right.
education's broken, and I don't want to get too tangential, but work is definitely broken. Work is saying leave most of the human at home. Just bring the process, the robot.
Mhm.
And people get really frustrated because they're like, why don't people just do what I tell them to do? You don't want people doing what you tell them to do.
Right.
And I think in dentistry, we try to over process people. Like there's so many consulting companies out there. Like, here's the 5 steps that your employees have to follow when making a new appointment. Like, you'll sound like a freaking robot.
Right.
You know, like when you talk to like some customer support centers in, you know, in foreign countries, and like, hey, you know, they take you through a process that's so annoying. And I really think that with what we do in dentistry, people can't perceive our quality as we always talk about. They can only perceive how we all, you know, the perception of how we all get along and how we're working together as a team and the human aspects of it. So when you turn that stuff on, I think you get a more successful practice, you get a more engaged team member. And frankly speaking, you have a more successful organization, because I don't want to do the thinking for you. I don't even know what the problems you're facing
Right.
are.
Well, and you cannot physically do all that thinking. Like you can't be with all the hygienists all the time thinking for them and telling them what to
Right.
do and how to talk to the patient and to put the lip on. You can't physically do it. So at some point there's got to be trust and autonomy.
Yeah,
At which
the system
point
breaks is what happens.
Right.
You have
right.
one hygienist, and you have 2 and 3, and that it just breaks.
Right. And on the, you know, the employment or like the stakeholder side of things, like it is not at all fulfilling to come to a workplace where I step through the door and turn my brain off and become a robot. Not at all fulfilling, not happy there. You know, this is like the mentality that like, I can't wait to retire kind of thing. Like, oh God, retirement, that's going to be bliss. I can't wait to like be my own person and be outside of these walls and blah, blah, blah. And this feels like a cage kind of thing. Like when there is room to grow and evolve, when there's autonomy, when I can think for myself, when I can turn my brain on, when I walk through the door and get excited about what we're going to create today, and I understand the purpose and where we're going as like collectively as a practice, it excites me and creates fulfillment. And it creates like, I want to do this. And also knowing that you, the practice owner, you are fully engaged and you fully buy into where we're going. You know where we're going and you believe it 100%. And I can see that clearly. Like I'm ready to jump on board. And then you give me the freedom and the space to do that. Like great, all day long.
The paradox though, and I keep coming back to it, and the unfortunate, it's like a travesty, is that dentists actually want that. They want that with their teams, but they're just scared shitless and they can't like let go of it. So they control people, they micromanage them, they microprocess them. Like there doesn't need to be a process for every single thing. And I just love turning people's brains back on.
Yeah.
So early on in development, like I'm working with Anne today. Anne hasn't worked clinically with me in a while. And I'm just like, Anne, I want you to think about everything. I want you to see the patient. I want you to give me your opinion as to what we think we should do with the patient. I don't really want a dental assistant. I want another like dentist next to me.
I love that.
And I would like Michelle, like we love Michelle. Michelle just, you know, she really started thinking about like each patient. So she'd come to me and be like, we have a patient in room 2. And I'm like, what's going on? And she would look at me at the beginning, like, I don't know, they're here for whatever. And I'm like, don't ever do that with me. Like, find out. And now she loves it.
Right.
She doesn't need to work.
Right.
You know, she had her baby but she comes back to work because she's really into it. Now she's like, this person should have this and that. And they can actually, I'm using a bad word, but sell treatment because they believe in what they're doing.
Right.
She can see the bite. She can see the fremitus. She can see why it's all needed to be done. Or Janet Taylor, or any of our people, or you. I mean, we believe in what we're doing. And even if it made us no money, the treatment we recommend would still be recommended.
Right.
And that's a really cool place.
Right.
And it's alignment. And we all have, you know, different personalities over work personality or home personality. And it's a beautiful thing when you can start consolidating all of your identities and have integrity and be the same person at work that you are at home, and you have the freedom to express who you really are. It's a really, I mean, I know we're getting all woo-woo here, but it's a really magical feeling.
Right, because
really
it's life happening at all times instead of like your work-life balance type of thing. It's like, oh, you're just living.
Right.
You live at work and then you live at home and then you live at, your kid's recital and then you
Right.
live, like you're living all the time,
Exactly. You're in the moment, you're present, and it's not that bullshit of like, oh, when I retire,
Mhm.
and they think that's a big thing too. Like you got to find meaning in work. And for those that have the ability to find meaning in work, you are so freaking blessed.
Yeah.
You're so blessed because when work is not treacherous and difficult, you don't really have to work.
Right.
And then it's not that FML, it's Monday, I can't believe I have to go to work. Thank God it's Friday. I mean, granted, we all like Fridays because
Right.
work is hard,
Mhm.
but it's just good to know that you put in the week and you got a good time. But yeah, I agree with you.
I want to circle back to
Circle
one
back.
thing that I think there's a question maybe from docs about how you can get your hygienist to think differently, or like, first of all, I want to say, like, I don't know if you can get anyone to do anything. Like, you can't make anyone do anything or like strong arm or force anyone into doing anything. But I think that one of the things that has helped me to turn my brain on and think like a practice owner the most is you giving me even just information about where you are as a practice owner, like how the practice is doing, what our numbers look like, what the goals are and why. Like, I think that there's a disconnect with dentists and hygienists because one, a lot of us are compensated, and I don't want to get into a whole compensation conversation, but like hourly, like not thinking of like the value that we bring to the hour or what that looks like from your standpoint as a practice owner.
Yeah, I think
Like,
that's a big part of it
it
though.
is,
It's a big
there's a
part of it.
loss, there's a disconnect
Yeah.
there, like not understanding why the numbers matter or why they should look a certain way. And like when we start to understand things a little more globally, and maybe everyone doesn't need that level of detail or information, but like I definitely do. And I know that a lot of hygienists are detail oriented. Like that's why we get into things this small, like not everyone, but a lot of us are. But just knowing like what our practice stats are and like what my compensation model looks like and why and how that impacts the practice, like
I
that
think
makes
that's
me.
fundamental though. I mean, I know you said you don't want to get into a compensation conversation, but I think that's fundamental. Compensation drives behavior.
Yeah.
And not that to say people are money hungry, but it's a way of keeping score.
Mhm.
Not everybody brings the same talent to every hour.
Right.
Like humans are wired for improvement.
Right.
In the wild, we'll stockpile, we will try to improve our surroundings. We'll do better. That's just what we do. We're wired for that. So to put a human being in a workplace where it doesn't matter what you bring to the hour, you get the same result every single time.
Yeah.
That just goes against human nature. Human nature is we're wired for improvement. We want to just improve always. I mean, that's why we paint the walls of the Sistine Chapel or ceiling. We want to make our situation better. So I think when you talk about an hourly employee, it is actually going against the very fabric of what a human being is at its essence, is someone who wants to improve their surroundings, and there has to be some sort of meritocracy. So I think we need to jump into that. It was amazingly apparent to me that all of the hygienists should be on a compensation package that functions as a percentage of their collections. I did it wrong. I forced it on people. My prior self was like just, I guess, full of like piss and vinegar. I just wanted to like jam it down everybody. Like, this is what you're gonna do. It's gonna be great. Come on.
Right.
And it actually pissed some people off. We lost, Ashley, who was awesome. I loved Ashley, but it was just done improperly. And then also the boss going through that distinction of, you're going to go on compensation. It's like, okay, what's this all about? It's different when the hygienist is like, hey, this is what I make.
Right.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
And then Ashley started out here, Kirsty started out here, and this is what they're doing. Then they all want to do it. So I have a unique benefit in that I have an engaged team that does that conversation for me. Because when the boss is saying it, like, okay, the boss is trying to screw me over here.
Right.
Like, what's in it? What is it?
Right. But then I come and advocate for what I've had over the last 7 years. And like, you're not going to, no one's going to argue with me.
Right. Of course.
I'm
It's
like,
credible.
every single month I have made significantly more than I would have on an hourly wage.
Always.
Always on collections.
But you have a unique purview to say that, and it just lands on them differently.
Right.
So I think it's really important that you create a culture that can speak for itself, because there's not a lot of trust to a new employee, and that's why we also have amazing hygienists, and we never have a shortage of employees. So like that's why you got Shay got Jenny got Isadora got, it's like it creates its own thing. We don't have all the challenges that everybody has in the dental world. Are like, hygienists want too much money and we can't get them to work for us, and they don't appreciate anything, and we don't have any of those problems, thank God.
Yeah.
Because of the culture and the leadership that you've built.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool.
All of that is them versus us. All of that is that misunderstanding, and like people, we're just hitting a wall on both sides. Like there's just like lack of information and lack of like empathy and lack of like, I'm in your shoes and you're in mine kind of thing, Even sharing your struggles as a business owner, like your fears, like
That's
when
powerful.
it is honestly powerful to be transparent with your team, and not in like a woe is me type of way, but in a way that's like, hey, this is the practice stats. I really want to keep the doors open here, even, you know what I mean? Like, this is something that will impact everyone, our patients, our practice, me, you, like let's think about this a little bit more globally. Like, you just being honest about like oh my God, like the profit margin,
Yeah.
like years back, and being like, hey, like it's
Yeah. We
tight,
ran a
like we got to change this,
yeah,
like
we ran a
this
not-for-profit for a while.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it.
Yeah.
But now we're for profit.
Yeah, we are
So
for
look at
profit.
that,
Yeah,
like you
it's true.
inform the right people and you want to get involved and make sure that it's all good too,
It's so funny because when we were in the non-for-profit days, my life was so stressful, not only just from the lack of profit, but also just in that I had no help. So it was really, part of me, it was really just a difficult time. And it's funny because things get easier and better at the same time. They get harder. It's maybe that doesn't make sense. I hope it's does that make sense to you? I'm saying it got the function of what I did as a business owner became easier.
Mm-hmm. Like you
And
delegated?
yes,
Okay.
and our results got better.
Right. That
So I
makes
was
sense.
working 4 times harder, getting 4 times worse results.
Yeah. You did way more with less.
Way more.
Less of your own personal effort and energy.
Right.
You personally.
Like, for example, I became one of the only Invisalign providers. We did half the cases we did this past year in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've tapered my clinical hours to 1 day a week. And my fear was like, oh shit, if I only do 1 day a week, we're not going to do any Invisalign. Mm-hmm. We did double what we've ever done before.
Wow.
So it's just that space, that analogy that we always talk about. Like, I would pull back, create some space, you'd fill the space, or other people would fill the space. Mm-hmm. And I think there's that measuring moment where you pull back a little further and then you jump even further. Yeah. And then pull back even further and jump even further. And I know you're looking at me, you know where I'm going.
The dread.
You know where you're going with this. So, and I want to go there because, like, here Brittany is completely dialed in our hygiene department. Everything's really going fantastically well. And I'm like, you got to share these secrets. You got to go on the Bulletproof. You got to jump in Bulletproof Hygiene. And that was me, like, literally, I would always jump 5 feet back from you, and you'd come into the 5 feet, jump 5 feet back. And I decided to just jump a quarter mile. Come on, do it. Jump in the water. It's great.
Rude. It's very rude and kind of you.
And so, but I could see it was for your betterment. And I remember it, there was a whole, I think every every challenge that we have requires a new version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So whether you're on Brittany 5.0, 6.0, I don't even know at this point, but you're meant to evolve. You're meant to do that. And if someone cares for you, they're meant to bring that out of you.
Yes.
And I just remember the conversation was here. In fact, you were sitting here, I was sitting there.
Yes.
But it was like, fuck, I don't even know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
And you're upset and you're emotional about it. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it if you don't want to. I'm here because I see you capable of doing it. I know you have a valuable voice. And, without getting too spiritual, I do believe it's your obligation. If you've struggled, you've worked, you got to pay it forward and help your other people out.
Yeah.
That's true purpose and fulfillment. Like, we have these 4 walls, we have our social experiment, but whatever we learn, it's incumbent upon us to pay it forward. Because there's so many freaking people out there, hygienists and dentists alike, that are consulting and they haven't done shit.
I know.
They haven't done anything.
So interesting.
It's really interesting. And they're telling you how to do it. And that just really rubs me wrong. Yeah. I mean, I'm always on the podcast, like, calling people out, but it's like, listen, I recognize you don't have to be perfect to teach, but at least have some experience. You can talk about your failures. And I was so proud of you that you decided to, reassemble, into Brittany 5.0 or whatever you were at that time, and do it.
Yeah.
And you crushed it.
Yeah.
I mean, that first Bulletproof Hygiene summit,
yeah,
right before the world shut down, COVID, like, you rocked it.
Yeah.
Standing room only. And now, look, we got our summit coming up in June in Nashville. And I mean, the hygiene tickets have been sold, or like up at the same level as the dentist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible what it's become. But like, again, that was like, I'm looking from your perspective, and like, what an interesting view you had at that moment, like seeing me cry and have a meltdown and say, I don't know if I want to do this. And also, for you, I think that you knew a little bit that it was an identity crisis for me too. Yeah. And it was very much about like, am I good enough? And am I this person? And can I, can I step into these shoes? Can I fill the void? And can I do this? Am I capable? In a lot of different ways.
Same exact iteration, the same conversation that we've been talking about at the exact same time.
Right.
So when we had the leadership crisis and Jessica left and blah, 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 it's, can I fill these shoes?
Right.
Can I do it?
Right.
And then it's me too. Like, can I let go? Are we going to be okay? So someone has to believe. Yes. Someone has to believe. Like, I have to believe in you, and you have to believe in the process as well. But it's trust, and it's all this other stuff.
It's a lot of trust. And like, I want to I've thanked you for this personally many times, but like, thanks for giving me that space and the opportunity, and then seeing me have a meltdown and still giving me more room.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm thankful that you're an L of 1 and you speak that language
Yeah,
so many
exactly.
times.
Yeah, Peter would have been done with you.
Yeah, no, he'd be like, bye. You're not
Yeah.
the one. You're not the one. See
You're
ya.
not the one. You're not the one for
Peace.
this. But it is true. It's and I think part of it too was that actually when you had that mini breakdown, and I don't breakdowns never bother me.
No.
You know, I always think of it like the vase cracks.
Yes, exactly.
But when the vase cracks, obviously water can leak out, but light can come in.
Right.
And it's the light that transforms us. And all of us are cracking at
Mhm.
every given moment. You know, there's future cracks for us, there's past cracks. We're all cracked, we're all flawed.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start realizing you have more grace for yourself and understanding for yourself and grace for other people, and then magic shows up.
Yeah.
And I do believe at that moment when you were telling me like, fuck, I don't know if I want to do this and blah, blah, blah. I actually was totally cool with your
Mhm.
answer.
Mhm.
I really, in past years, I would have challenged you, like, come on, what do you want to do with your life? Like, I would have like stung you. I would
Mhm.
have like punched you, like
Mhm.
jabbed you. And then this was like, you know what? You're awesome where you are. You're doing a great job here. And if you want to stay where you are, that's totally cool. I have no judgment. And it was true. I really
Right.
meant it.
Right.
Because if I was bullshitting you, you would have felt it.
I would have felt it.
And I wasn't. I didn't
Right.
care. Wherever you were going to be was going to be
No,
fine
and
with
I
me.
know. And I felt supported and loved. And even in that moment, like, this is a me personally thing, but I think a lot of people may feel this way. Just like, I know in that moment of meltdown and turmoil and like, can I do this? I already know the answer. And I already know that like, I'm going to be okay. And I
Yeah.
already knew even then that it was a yes.
Yeah.
I
You were
did.
just going through
I did.
a
I was
mourning
just,
process.
it was just a moment, like old,
Yeah.
like you've said before, like old Brittany had to die, and then like
Yeah.
new Brittany like had to, and it's true,
Yeah,
like
the old version of
so
you has to
breakdowns
die.
before breakthroughs kind of
Yeah,
thing.
but the old version has to die.
All of the best things that have ever happened in my life have come post breakdown.
Yeah, me too.
All of the best
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a breakup, a severing of this relationship, a loss of something, a
Look at
resource, an
COVID.
asset, or
Look at
COVID, something.
Yeah.
It's all like part of the evolution process. And like, I think what our breakdowns individually look like are different, but like, if we allow them and like see what are my fears here and kind of like address and step through and forward instead of like try and go around, you know, and avoid
Yeah.
something there.
Or the shame of the breakdown.
Or the shame of the
Because you're like,
breakdown.
why am I crashing? Look at
Exactly.
Sally over there. She just kicks
Exactly.
ass at everything.
Yeah.
And why is it so easy for Dr. Jones?
Right.
So I think that the suffering that we actually go through is cruel and unusual
Mhm.
because we believe as human beings, we're the only ones going through it.
I agree with that.
That's the shitty part. You're like, why is it so hard for me? No, it's hard for everyone. It's hard
Mhm.
for everyone. And at 50 years old, I have such a unique perspective because I have so many amazing, iconic friends. I have so many good people in my life, and I get to share these conversations. Like, even you, John, you're a freaking billionaire. What are you worried about? He's like, no, I have these moments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, damn, everybody has them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I can impart that to you early, because, you're, 20 years behind me, it's just so cool that you can learn that stuff. What an amazing thing for you to know that no matter what pinnacle of success you reach, you're still going to have your human failings.
Mhm.
And that's cool. That's fine.
Becoming more and more okay with that. And I think you pointed out recently, like, you're noticing a change in like my resilience. You're noticing bouncing back and like rubber band effect a little bit quicker and kind
Yeah.
of like, okay, meltdown. All right, let's move forward now. Let's
you
move on.
resolve quick.
Bouncing back really quickly.
That's all you can hope for. You can't,
Right.
you can't wish you don't have the breakdown.
Right.
That's just ridiculous. That's
It's unrealistic.
It's going to happen. Shit's going to hit the fan. You're going to turn into like, you're going to get upset.
Mhm.
But if you can start getting resilient to you, so you bounce back to your normal state quick,
Mhm.
that's amazing. Like even Tony said that. Tony said that, like Tony Robbins would oftentimes tell in his seminars, he doesn't have like long suffer, like he won't suffer long. So he'll go, he knows it's human to suffer,
Mhm.
but he'll go through it quickly. So maybe he'll have a 90-second breakdown
Right.
versus a 90-day breakdown,
Right.
like when we were inexperienced.
Mhm.
Like you just gotta, the emotional elasticity to go back to normal. That's all you can hope for in life.
Yep.
And I try to tell my kids that. I'm like, I lose my cool. You lose your cool. Just, go through it and get back to normal quick.
Mhm.
Because like the old versions of ourselves, something shitty happens and it's 2 weeks of looking at the world in a shitty way.
Yeah.
And when you're in a shitty mental space, when your mind is in a shitty space, you're not resourceful.
Yeah.
You'll go.
No, you're not. You
further
stay
into it.
stuck. It's
You
that
stay stuck.
you're in the downward spiral for sure.
And then everything supports that narrative.
Yep.
My life sucks. I can't believe I got to break out of and then you make macro movements like, screw this whole dental thing.
Yeah.
I need to go do this.
Yeah.
and you make these macro movements when all you really need in life is just micro adjustments.
Yeah.
I see people swinging left to right. They go, I'm going to California, go to New York. Like, no, you just need to go to Vero.
Just pivot.
I just need to go to like just a small pivot. Yeah. What are you going to title this podcast? A lot of.
This is called the Existential Podcast with Craig and Brittany.
Yeah. Is it? What glass of wine are you
melting
on?
down? I'm on the second glass actually.
I don't know if I like drinking on the podcast. I'm the opposite, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I think people drink so that they feel like I do normally. In other words, like when I drink, I get quiet.
Oh, okay. I see.
But I can't have you drink alone. That would be really weird.
Yeah,
you have a problem if you drink
wanted
alone.
Lefroy. You wanted.
No, I love my
Lefroy too.
scotch,
Okay,
and
yeah,
I'm
good.
enjoying the drink.
Okay,
It's
good.
just the drink plus
Right.
the podcast is new for me.
I
I did
see.
this once with Peter.
Yeah.
I had one beer with him. Like, I think I'm drunk.
That's your knee jerk. You're drunk.
I'm drunk.
You're high. You're
I'm
drunk.
hammered. I'm hammered. What else do you have on the agenda?
As a leader, just talking about, my perspective as a leader and making sure, like, knowing that you have my best interest at heart, knowing that you believe in me, knowing that you trust me, but we've kind of covered all of that stuff. And then another thing that we've talked about, so taking risk to give someone more space to try something new. And one thing, we can talk about the Perrier Protect example of like you giving me some space to potentially crash and burn.
Yeah. That was a hard moment for you because I think you were meeting with a lot of friction.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to ease the friction. I wanted you to kind of go through it.
Right.
Because like you have to break that inertia. Remember you brought up to the doctors, and some people didn't even care and they want to hear about it.
Yeah. Yes. And you made me get a consensus.
Yeah.
So for the people who didn't want to hear, they gave me no answer. And then the one person who didn't want to hear, but didn't want it to move forward, gave me a lot of answers and a lot of.
Can you give me the initials of that person?
No.
Come on, why not?
Afterwards.
Yeah, tell me. Is it GD?
Yes.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
She doesn't listen to us.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, it was via email. So your prerequisite. Okay, so I went to visit Charissa, my hygiene counterpart, right, with Bulletproof Hygiene. You and Bolden set us up on the blind date. I went and visited Charissa. I learned a lot of what she does and how she's so highly productive. And one of the major things that I learned was about Perrier Protect trays. And then I started really, really diving deep and digging into the research, like the actual research, not just funded obviously by the company, but like the historic research, long-term, whatever. So I did a lot of my own research. I fabricated actually the protocol for Perrier Protect at Spodak Dental Group. And then I emailed that protocol to all of our doctors because I had gone to you initially and said, hey, what would it take for me to bring this to our team? This is what it is. This would be the cost. This would be the benefit. This is how it benefits patients. I went through kind of it with you in a nutshell, because I know that you don't like all the details, but I went through all of it in a nutshell with you. What would it take to get from this point where we have nothing, no one even knows about Perrier Protect, to this point when we're like enrolling all these patients in Perrier Protect and everyone agrees and everyone's on the same page? What are the steps in between? And you said all the doctors have to agree and want this on board.
Wow, that was a lofty one.
That was
all
pretty
of them?
lofty.
Or like
No, you said all of them, including CAB, like
Okay.
including our specialists. Like
Okay,
everyone
got it.
had to agree, consensus, like that
That's
this was a
awesome.
good thing. So then there was no other way. Like I had to create the protocol. And this is one of the examples of like, wow, a lot of work behind the scenes happened in order for like something good to happen and be running really, really smoothly today at work every single day. Like I took a risk by saying like, hey, I'm going to fabricate this whole protocol and see if anyone even bites, like potentially nothing happens after this, but I fabricated this whole thing, how we scan, the lab process, what the cost is to the practice, who things are posted to, how it benefits the patient, the link for all the research, it's a bunch of links.
But you
you
also posted the business sense as well.
Yeah.
Like, why is it a good idea for the proper
I
to go to
did.
the
I
practice?
did all the costs.
Just like the last course you talked about.
Mhm.
You didn't just say like, hey, I've been here for 8 years and I'd really like to have this course. It's going to cost this much money. It'd be really nice for me.
Mhm.
You like created a business, like a very short, here's what it is. Here's why it would be a really good business idea.
Right.
So I think that's a great piece of information for all those people that are looking for, ways to make more money and you got to bring it to a business. It's a business idea.
Yeah.
And that's what, like when two people in unrelated businesses get together, they don't say, hey, I'd really like you to pay me more money. Like, here's what I can do for your company.
Right.
Here's why it's worth it for you to pay me 20% of what I'm going to do, because you're going to make a lot of money too. So kudos to you. But I also knew like bringing an idea to a bunch of non-aligned doctors is gonna be so difficult for you.
Yeah.
If you can get that shit done, you can probably get ParaProtect through. So it's like it's its own natural selection. Like if you can
Yes.
actually do that. So I just know, like, if you
Yes.
can't get that done,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have, so you had to have a certain amount of grit and tenacity to get it accepted.
Yeah.
And that grit and tenacity create the momentum to actually implement and get it going.
Right. So you were like survival of the fittest. Okay,
Yeah,
go.
go. Yeah, go
Go
for
ahead.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jump off the
And then I
cliff.
did. And then I did. And then I got a lot of some feedback and sometimes zero feedback. And I had to chase those doctors around the practice and tell them as they were walking down the hallway how ParaProtect is good for our practice.
Yeah.
And what
No,
it's
you
for
started
our
doing
patients.
slideshows. And you did like, Kirsten had a really good result before and
Oh,
after.
right. In
So
huddle.
in the huddle, you're like, hey,
Yes,
this
that's
is
right.
before and
That's
this is
right.
after.
That's right.
Does anybody see the tissue being healthier?
Yes. And I answered. So yeah, the person who had a lot of questions and a lot of pushback was like, are we going to do follow-up salivary testing to make sure that it's working? And I'm like, no, because we don't do that after traditional therapy, which is NSPT. Like, why would we do it for this therapy? We can see the clinical results. Like there's a period chart for a reason. There's bleeding points for a reason. Like those are the things that we measure. Like that's how we're going to measure, so yeah, right. Exactly. Well, they are subjective, I guess, but
oh, sorry, objective points. Sorry. Don't call me out on my own freaking podcast.
The probe is a ruler, Dr. Craig. It's very specific.
I know, but you can just push it a little harder.
You can just overangulate.
Yeah,
underangulate, overangulate. You can do many things. It is actually objective and subjective. Okay.
So
beside the point.
Okay,
we digress. Anyway, today ParaProtect is onboarded.
Yes, it is. And now we're running salivary testing too.
Yes. Well, that's already onboarded. Actually, it's been onboarded. And the reason I sent the email and the reason that I'm interested in taking the BASDH certification is so that I kind of understand a little bit more comprehensively how and why salivary testing will benefit our patients and how it will lead to higher treatment acceptance and how it will benefit our practice as a whole.
And it's also good evidence to show how the therapies that we're doing are effective.
100%. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Because it feels kind of frustrating for some patients who have, recurring, periodontal diseases recurrent in nature, but not making any progress. Like, I feel like I'm not making any progress,
right.
But no, you're looking better. And then, oh, look at the bacterial count. Look at the type of bacteria that we've eradicated.
Speaking of objectivity, exactly. That is a very, very measurable way to say like, hey, this is the difference that we've been making, and even recommend specific treatment protocols and systemic antibiotics when that's indicated for like refractory cases and that sort of thing. So it can be a very helpful tool. I
mean, look at how much more metrics we're looking at with our bodies. Like I have the Aura ring and people have Fitbit and the gyms, they have body fat analysis. You just, even if you're not seeing physical progress, at least seeing those numbers and showing that you are making good headway is very rewarding. It's like gamification.
Yes.
And patients often come in and they just feel like sometimes they're hopeless and not getting any, they can't analyze their own level of care and how they're progressing over time. They just rely upon what you guys are doing.
Right.
But I do like the idea that like when we're talking like physical fitness and, fitness tracking, I think the hygienist is like a personal trainer because, people are not going because they're sick. So people are visiting their medical providers because they're sick. They're trying to get unsick. And their hygienist relationship is just always focused on getting optimally healthy. So you're doing great, you're healthy, but there's another level for you. There's healthier. So it's this very interesting like coaching relationship and you kind of bring people along. I love it. I love hygiene. I think it's a great profession for people to entertain. I think it's just so rewarding. It really is cool.
It's very rewarding.
And unfortunately the narrative is such that like got to get out of the operatory. And I think that's unfortunate because there's so much fulfillment that can be within the walls of your treatment room and all the people you get to serve.
It can be. And a lot of it depends on a lot of the things we talked about tonight.
The environment, correct. Yeah, it's true. It's amazing. We go to different dental offices. How each office is so freaking unique. It's like we're all in different industries. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What's next in the agenda, Britt?
Nothing. We have reached the end.
The end.
We didn't even drink that much. I think that we're
talking too much.
Is necessary.
Okay, well, we'll stop the recording and we'll pound the rest of it.
Exactly.
If you want to see what happened at the rest of this thing, comment below.
Post recording.
Yeah, post recording. Exactly.
Hashtag,
we'll put a picture on us like
hashtag Spodak shit-faced.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag. Are you working tomorrow?
Not until 10.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so I got space.
Yeah,
give me space and autonomy, please.
Right, you have it. Hey, well, Brittany, I really appreciate your being on this inaugural edition of the headphone podcast.
Yeah,
the in-person headphone podcast. It's very different. I like it.
It is. I feel honored to be the first headphone podcaster here.
Yeah, and I just want you to know, and I know you know this, but I want to say it again publicly. This place is so much better because of you, and personally, I'm better because of you. And that's a really cool thing to be able to tell somebody. Work doesn't just have to be treachery. Work can be a source of your fulfillment. Work can be a source of your identity. Work can be the place that you serve other people. It can be your spiritual or whatever identity you have. It can be incorporated in that. And if we can create the framework and the space for people to understand that work can be totally different, then we're doing a good thing for dentistry and doing a good thing for people.
Thank you for the huge compliment. And
Of
I agree 100% with all the latter things that you said and the former things you said actually.
Well, cheers, Britt.
Cheers.
And with that,
Cheers.
we'll end.
Yes.
Awesome.